podcast, so I'm going to leave that right there just so it doesn't start playing when we start talking. I'm Madison. This is Jade. Anna, unfortunately, could not be here today. Let me introduce the class.
Oh, yeah. So we're from Dr. Kuzo's class, and the class that we're in basically teaches about climate change and how it's impacting us. So the topic of our podcast is on positive and negative feedback loops as they relate to climate change.
Yeah, and to start, although Professor Evan Kuzo isn't here right now, he was earlier, and just a testament, he has a very unique way of teaching, and I think it's very impressive because he's able to educate us and entertain us at the same time, and he kind of gave us that goal in this assignment. He told the whole class pretty much that your goal in this podcast was to find an entertaining way to educate people on kind of a complex and scientific topic which people don't always find enjoyable to listen about. In our podcast, we broke it up into two segments, a morning session and an evening session. We took callers and we had very embarrassing mimic voices, which we are not including in our excerpts that we're picking. We are picking the introduction and the conclusion, and I'll just start real quick. Good morning, everyone. This is Madison, Anna, and Jade from UNC Asheville. Let's see if we can push through our grogginess for our Climate Change and Daily Life podcast this morning. We're going to be doing something special today. You're now able to call in to make comments or ask questions, but before we start, Jade, how'd you sleep?
You know, I'm not gonna lie, I haven't really been doing that sleep thing, man. I feel like I'm stuck in a cycle.
Ooh, must be the procrastination cycle. I know it pretty well, and it's brutal. You lose sleep because you're stressed.
And because you're stressed, you avoid what's stressing you. And in the case of a college student, that stressor is homework.
Yeah, and then your work piles up because you procrastinated and...
Oh my gosh, you lose even more sleep because you've been stressing over all the work that you happen to let pile up.
Because you procrastinated.
Yeah, it's so terrible because it's self-reinforcing.
That reminds me, do you guys remember the class that we took together in our freshman year of college? It was the 178 seminar, I believe.
Oh yeah, with Professor Kuzo. We learned about climate change and the inevitable destruction of the earth.
Yeah, you know, Jade, I think the cycle you found yourself in is a positive feedback loop. But don't be misled, it's not positive at all.
Okay. Just so we save ourselves from your dry humor, let's take our first caller this morning. I wonder if anyone else is suffering the way I've been.
Hello! Welcome to our Climate Change and Daily Life podcast. What's on your mind?
Howdy. Can y'all explain more about this positive feedback thing? 'Cause I like positive feedback. Compliments are great, but I have a feeling we're not talking about the same thing.
Alright, well, let's clear that up for you. The positive feedback we're talking about here is about the climate. In this case, the loop ends and begins with an increase in temperature.
Yeah, and for example, the ice melting in the North Pole is a positive feedback loop. The temperature increases and it causes the ice to melt. When ice melts, it creates more dark surface, and the dark surface absorbs heat. So when more heat's absorbed, temperature increases. See, we started and finished with an increase in temperature, showing that it's self-reinforcing and a cyclic effect.
Hey, that was pretty good.
Okay, so just to outline some of the things that we did in the introduction was we tried to make it something that people can connect to, because when you have a very important issue like climate change, you need to let people care about it. And it's hard to get people to care about something if they can't relate to it in some way. And because we're college students, we have all seen procrastination affect us. We all know how easy it is to fall into that cycle. And that is very similar to the positive feedback loops that we do see in our environment in terms of pollution. And the example we used being the melting of the ice and how the dark surface allows us to absorb more heat and then melt more ice. So just so you can see what we did there, it was about letting our audience connect to what we're talking about and at the same time learn about a complex issue. Now we're going to jump to, hopefully I clicked the right spot, the conclusion. And here we talk about the negative feedback loops, which are self-defeating. and are good for the environment.
But there's less of them.
Very few examples of them, which is a bad thing for the environment. But here's one we can discuss.
So a good example of a negative feedback is chemical weathering. If you don't know what that is, the chemicals we put in our atmosphere accelerate the erosion of rocks and minerals. And certain rocks on the surface of the Earth actually play a key role in the absorption of CO2, which is carbon dioxide. This decreases the temperature, but the more exposed these rocks are, the more CO2 is absorbed, reducing the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere, thus reducing the temperature.
That's a good way to explain it, Jade. And for more simple-minded people like me, another way to think about it is when you drink alcohol. Your liver works harder to get rid of the toxic chemicals that you've consumed. And when you consume out of moderation, you can severely damage your liver. Well, the Earth has stage 4 liver cancer, jaundice and it all, and it's because we've forced our atmosphere to consume too much CO2, which is a toxic chemical, and now our atmosphere is taking it in out of moderation.
Remember, negative loops are in the minority. They act as a very minute buffer to the oncoming blast that is global warming.
And we'd like to make it clear, with all of the lightheartedness that we expressed throughout today, it is important to understand it is a falsified glorification of the serious issues we are facing.
Our world is in serious danger, or at least the human species has put itself at risk, considering the fact that the Earth is able to withstand far more than us, and we only have ourselves to blame.
And before we close out, I want you to think about the classic chips and dip dilemma. The reason there's never enough chips or never enough dip is because of you. You are responsible for taking a disproportionate amount of dip. Because, this imbalance cannot be blamed on anyone other than yourself. And eventually you're not going to have any more dip to buy. You're not going to have the money for it, or you ate it all, and now there's none left at the grocery store, so no one gets any dip because you've eaten all the dip because you're selfish, gluttonous, inconsiderate, ignorant, and you're a son of
All right, okay. That is all for today. Thank you for sticking with us for another day of 100 Analogies on Climate Change in Daily Life podcast.
Okay, so we tried to use comedy and humor to help illustrate our message, but we did touch on it somewhere in there that this is a very serious issue, and using comedy and analogies and funny ways to get people to listen to you talk about something they didn't originally care about. It is one way for you to approach doing this on your own. If you make a website through the school, that we have fortunately a great opportunity to do that, you can always record your own podcast in the Media Design Lab. You can always educate people in your own way, different forms of writing, as someone previously taught us about, which is really interesting and fun to learn about. And he could even make a podcast and tell people about that. So hopefully we inspired you to do something and educate people on this serious issue. Thank you for listening.